Writing decimals as fractions. Write the following fractions as decimal approximations rounded to 1, 2, and 3 decimal places. So here we're given 3 fractions, positive, negative, and also mixed numbers. And we want to write them as decimals. So we could do this by long division, but it's a lot of work and we're just going to have the calculator do it. So first, let's look at 2/3. So we want to write this as a decimal to 1 place. So we're going to divide 2 by 3. Okay. And notice the calculator is giving us a long string of numbers. They're mostly 6s until the end where it has a 7. And actually, this fraction would have 6s that go on forever, but the calculator rounds here. Looks like it's about 20 or 30 something decimal places, and it rounds up. So we need to round it to 1 decimal place, which means we look at the first decimal place. The second decimal place is greater than 5, so we're going to round up by adding a 1 to 6 and dropping the rest of the numbers. So we have 0.7. Okay. Now we want to round to 2 decimal places. And it's tempting to look at your original 1 decimal place and use that in some way, but you actually need to look at the original decimal expansion. Because if we're going to round to 2 decimal places, we need to look at the third digit, which is 6, and round up from there, which means the 6 in the hundredths place changes to a 7. So it's 0.67. Okay. So notice all of these, you may think, well, this is 3/100ths away from 7/10. All of these are approximations of the fraction 2/3. And it depends on how precise you want to be or what a problem asks you to round to see what you're going to, how many decimal places you use. And now if we go to 3 decimal places, the 4th decimal place is a 6, so I'm going to round up the 3rd decimal place to a 7, so that's 0.667. Let's look at the next one, -7/9. Now this is negative, but we're just going to put a negative sign. We can even do that now. In front of each decimal, we can just focus on the 7/9. So let's divide 7 by 9. Okay, notice this is a bunch of 7s at the end. Again, the calculator is rounding up to 8. Okay, so for the first 1 decimal place, we look at the second decimal place. It's a 7, so we round up to 0.8. And again, we have our negative sign already there. For 2 decimal places, the third place is 7, so we round up to 0.78 with the negative sign out front. And finally, 3 decimal places, the fourth is also 7, so we round up to 0.778. Again, for each one, look at the calculator expansion. Don't look at the previous one. Notice this has a 7 in the hundredths place, and this one has an 8 in the hundredths place, so it can change. Okay, now we have a mixed number. Okay, and the good news is we're just going to put a -3 out front and then get the decimal ready. Okay, so we know how to write the -3, the whole number part of the mixed number, as a decimal. It's just a -3. And then for 11ths, we need to transform into a decimal and put to the right of the decimal point. So we don't need to include the -3 in our calculations at all. So now, let's divide 4 by 11. Okay. And notice we're getting alternating 3s and 6s. Okay, so that's the repeating pattern. So 1 decimal place, we have a 3 in the tenths place. To the right there's a 6, so we're going to round up to 0.4. So I don't have to put the 0 because there's actually a -3 in the whole number spot, so -3.4. 2 decimal places, notice we have a 6 in the hundredths place, 3 in the thousandths, so we're going to round down to 0.36, or in this case, -3.36. So here we rounded up, there we rounded down because the digits are alternating between 3 and 6. And for 3 decimal places, we're going to look at the fourth. The fourth decimal place is 6, so we're going to round up this 3 to a 4, so it's 0.364. So negative 3.364. And next we have 14 and 5/7. Again, for the whole number part, we can just write 14 decimal for all of it. No need to include it in the calculator, it's just more work. And we're going to divide 5 by 7 to find the decimal. Okay, so 1 decimal place, 1 is in the hundredths place, so it's just 0.7. 2 decimal places, we have 7, 1, and in the thousandths place is a 4, so we're not going to add 1 to the 1, we're just going to make it 0.71. And 3 decimal places, we have 7, 1, 4, and then there's a 2, so we round down to 0.714.